Good morning or afternoon, everybody, depending on where you are joining us from. Welcome to the Community of Human and Organizational Learning's July 23rd webinar with our community friend, John Smith. John is going to be presenting to us on sprinkling and nudging toward hop integration. I don't know, is that sprinkles like the same kind of sprinkles on cupcakes?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Then we'll all be happy and excited about that. John, like I said, is a friend of the community. If you all were with us at the conference this year, then you might have had occasion to meet him. John focuses in his work on safety strategies for high risk industries, and not just high risk industries, but high risk industries that have a lot of very highly variable and highly technical components to it, such as biotech and medical manufacturing. John helps a lot of those industry uncover latent conditions, which will help them eventually to decrease the likelihood of any major surprises that they might have while they are out there working. John does a lot of that through operational learning and using human and organizational performance principles. And one thing that I like that John said, and I think this could maybe be his new tagline, is that he helps things go right more often. I think that is a simple and powerful statement. And we're going to welcome John now to the community. If you all have any questions for John, if you would just pop them in the chat, and we will make sure that all of those get answered before we disconnect today. So without any further ado, John, go ahead on and sprinkle and nudge us.
Hmm. Thank you so much, LaRonda, and hi, everybody. Um, Pleasure to be here with you today to talk about this topic. Sprinkling and nudging toward integration. Uh, I can give you a little bit of background about myself. I'm not a consultant. I'm a practitioner. I guess I would call myself. And this is not my first go round with integrating with a hop integration at a company. So I've got like a second chance here. A couple of months ago, I was lucky enough to have a confluence of opportunity, and I made a jump. So I've got a really nice opportunity here to do this a little bit differently. My first integration, and a lot of you or some of you might this might sound familiar. It looked a lot like a traditional safety program where we were rolling it out and we had like a training quota and things like that. And I would tell you that looking back at it, it was effective, but there were some hard fought battles in there, and I came out of it better. I had some friends, I had some enemies, and I was just kind of left wondering if there was a better or different way to do this. So um sprinkling and nudging, I can't take credit for this combination of words here. It's kind of serendipitous. A few months ago, I was at a Nexus HSE meeting. And if you don't know this group, Nexus HSE, look them up on LinkedIn. They're really on the leading edge of a lot of stuff. But we were talking through some things related to HOP. And the gentleman from the safety team from Schindler, the elevators and escalators, they were sharing some things about their human performance hop journey, and it sounded so similar to my experience. And they mentioned sprinkling and nudging. This is sort of where they're at today, and that really resonated with me. And I tried to recreate this moment that sort of was very impactful. That let me know, like, okay, this is important. Um, when I stood up at the meeting, we're all at a table, big long table, and people are taking notes, right? We're safety folks, we're taking notes. And I noticed that on multiple notebooks, people had jotted down sprinkle and nudge and either underlined it or circled it. Um, but it resonated with a lot of people. So I thought, there's something here. So um, I am going to share with you some of the things that I've learned, some of the things that I'm currently working on. And uh, this idea of nudging, there's some background behind it. There's like some strategy to do this. And I'm going to share with you some of the things that I've learned primarily from this book called uh, Nudge. That was really popular a couple of years ago, and it's gained and maintained a lot of popularity. It's on its like second edition, but we'll start moving through it. For those, I see a lot of familiar people on here. Hi, everybody. So good to see you again. But for those of you that don't know me, John Schmidt, EHS manager at Exact Sciences. We do a lot of interesting and important work around early cancer detection right here in the world-class city of Madison, Wisconsin. So pleasure to meet you. Um, so nudging, what does this give us? And the sources, I'm not taking entirely out of this one source, nudge, but also I've been using to kind of craft my next go around here. I've been taking from other sources that when I start looking through these, I can't help but think like, wow, th- this is hop. They are talking about hop in these materials. So you ever get that feeling when you're reading something and it's like, oh, this is hop, but you're not you haven't particularly went out to learn about hop. You just sort of like notice some of the fundamentals in multiple things working and doing good things. That's sort of what this was. So as we go through the presentation, I want to share with you some of the tidbits from Nudge, how we can use them to sprinkle and move forward some of the fundamentals behind human and organizational performance. I also want to introduce you to the Guide to Human-Centered Design, which is this free resource. It's about an 80-page PDF. It's put out by this world-renowned design firm called IDEO. They've What they do is they solve problems using, workers are the leading experts on how work gets done. So that concept, they've been very successful doing that all over the world. I think maybe their most famous case is they played a large role in designing the iPhone and the intuitiveness behind that product and some other Apple products. So, and then lastly, a kind of maybe a controversial one here, but I think it's so fascinating to look into the strategy of this, but the four-step vaccine counseling guide for healthcare providers. Uh, it This is also a free resource PDF, and really what this is helping healthcare providers do is trying to help people make a decision on their own to do something that they might not necessarily want to do right now. And when you think about safety, um, there's a lot of things that we're trying to convince people to make the right choice to do when we're not there. And I have found some very useful strategies in here. So without further ado, we'll start moving into the good stuff. First, got to define the terms. It's such an important part of this, but sprinkling, uh, not exactly talking about the sprinkles on a cupcake, but now you have me thinking, and I haven't had any breakfast yet this morning. Now I'm just kind of distracted by that. Thanks. I'm only joking, but sprinkling. What we're talking about here is weaving, weaving human and organizational performance into existing processes without fanfare. Okay, so Todd Conklin talks a lot about building new knowledge onto old knowledge. And I think this is what we're getting at here. So, weaving it, finding those existing processes where we can weave or sprinkle the good stuff into without a whole lot of fanfare, without maybe, the poster campaign that goes along with a program, you know so, and then the second part, nudge, and this is a definition taken from Thaler and Sunstein, who are the authors of Nudge. But what we're trying to do here is change behavior without changing choices. If people feel like they have agency over what is happening or what they're doing, they're much more likely to be engaged. And I'm sure all of you have felt that personally or have seen that work out in a positive way. So we don't want to take choices away. We don't want to tell people what to do, but we want to design our processes around these concepts that are presented in Nudge that sort of act as an invisible hand a little bit to usher people in the way that we would like them to go. Why it works? It's a lot less threatening, right? Change can be scary. I'm going to go back to this last slide here. So we want to make change less scary, more natural, and make it feel more like their choice. So something that is not threatening, something that respects the local culture, what is happening at that point in time. We would like to move that, but we also want to respect what is happening here. It's what is happening now is how that group was successful up to this point, right? So there's some strong feelings there. And lastly, meet people where they already are, build new knowledge onto old knowledge. And the more and more I think about this stuff is, I think we've sort of been talking about this for a long time. Because if you recognize the Trojan mouse, I know the gentlemen from Learning Teams Inc. have been talking about the Trojan mouse for a long time. You might have heard like the Trojan cockroach. I've heard other different renditions of the same idea. But the thought is we want to be small at first, right? Get in there and just start making a difference. We want to start making a difference. A good reminder here is a Trojan mouse's job isn't to win the war all at once, right? Because we talk about hop as a journey. It's not winning a war all at once. We should be prepared for sort of uh, a long go for this project that we're working on. I can tell you because I experienced this on my own a little bit um, on my early attempts at this. If you do try to win the war all at once, you risk polarizing people. You risk polarizing some very important people that may have been a supporter if you would have only moved a little bit slower and not made things uncomfortable for them. So think about this, the ideal state, it might be off in the future, but what can we do now? What good things about HOP can we get working now in the organization? Does it have to be all or nothing? I hope not. Uh, a couple of things to watch out for so you don't polarize your audience. You all want to be going in the same direction, right? And that might take some time, take some sprinkling and nudging, but some things to watch out for. Absolutes, right? When you throw out an absolute statement out there into the wild, you're kind of risking, polarizing your audience, splitting them apart. You're going to win a lot of supporters, but at the same time, you might lose some. And at the same time, you might not even know the ones that you've lost either, because you might not hear about it again. But things like, we can blame or punish or learn and improve, but we can't do both. We agree with that, right? But you can see how that might be polarizing to
Yeah.
a group that has sort of not operated like that for their entire careers. So there's a gentler way that I would recommend going about those conversations. Also, if you are a practitioner, if you're a full-time employee within an organization and you care about the future of that organization, polarization is often seen as a threat to that organization, right? Like companies do a lot of work to keep employees moving cohesively in the same direction. And things that sort of threaten that are generally not seen as good for business and might not be good for your career. Just speaking from a little bit of experience there, but uh, these messages are important, right? And we know that once you hear these things, and once people hear some of these things, you can't unhear them. So I feel like a lot of these conversations are a wonderful opportunity to have a consultant come in and deliver some of these things because they have the ability to step away, right? We hire them for their opinion to bring in fresh new ideas. um, and if the organization doesn't like them right away, it's not on you. It's the consultant. And I can tell you that there are some tremendously talented consultants that work in our space that are very, very good at doing this the right way. And don't forget about them as a resource to sort of get things going a little bit. Um, but I think that all relates to, Kaizen. A lot of our companies talk about this, and we're in this lean, we use this lean manufacturing language, and they're already used to this, right? They already believe in making small changes over time to drive ongoing improvement. So that is like another place where we can sort of sprinkle ourselves into. So let me get in and share some of the more notable pieces of this book, some of the more actionable things that I feel like we can use to nudge people toward using the concepts of human and organizational performance. Uh, a big message in this book, something that we should not forget, is that people tend to do things that are easy and make them feel good. If there's one universal truth for people around the world, okay, it's this, right? People do things that are easy and make them feel good, and they repeat those behaviors. So I want to share 5 different approaches to this, 5 different things that we can think about and use to nudge people towards human and organizational performance. And these are all kind of spelled out in the book, but I'm going to explain to you what they are and then give you some ideas of how you might be able to nudge with hop concepts. And the first one on the list is, of course, defaults. People tend to go with the default option most often. This is what we like, and there's some reasons why. There's a status quo bias. All right, generally we want to do what the other people are doing. It seems safe, right? So if everybody else is doing it, I'm going to do it too. It seems safe. It's easy. We don't have to think about it a whole lot. It's the choice has already sort of been given to you on a platter. So why not, right? You don't have to do a whole lot of cost benefit in your mind. There's the choice has already been made. There's also a reluctance to change. So if there is a default, something that everybody is doing, it takes some work to change that. So knowing this, how can we use that to our advantage? A couple of ways, and I encourage you to sort of like think about this on your own. I have some examples here, but I know for sure that there are so many more that we could use here. But a couple of them are, for investigations, provide some standard investigation questions. Those good operational learning questions that we're starting to see in question guides, and maybe even operational learning cards or prompts. But when you provide those to managers as default questions, you are nudging them toward asking those good questions, which in return is going to get good engagement, and they are going to get good information and have some respect with that employee. So that's one way. Investigation training. If there is any investigation training at your company, try to bake in some of that humble inquiry. Uh, have that be the default method of approaching the investigation. A lot of the other components and structure can stay the same, something that they're useful or used to, rather, but the humble inquiry is noticeably different when you're sitting on the other end as an employee. And then there's a couple of other things that you can do there. And again, I would encourage you to think about where else you can make the good stuff the default. The next one I want to share with you is framing. Framing is incredibly powerful, especially in economics. Small changes in how things are framed can shift the way that we think about things significantly. It's a big deal. It happens, and you probably don't even realize it's happening to you. You're making choices that you feel like your own, but there is a little bit of nudging going on behind the scenes, which I think is brilliant. One of the most popular examples of this is when you're in the supermarket buying ground beef. Imagine this: are you more likely to buy ground beef that is labeled as 80% lean, or would you buy the one that is labeled 20% fat? It's the same thing, right? It's all about how you frame it. And time again, without surprise, it's not surprising to us that people choose the 80% lean. It has a positive spin on it, right? People are more attracted to that. So, what are the things that might be negative that we can maybe put a positive spin on to attract people to it, to attract people to use it? Uh, let's think about safety for one of them. The safety, if you were to ask the people on the floor what they thought about safety, I think it might vary, but generally the old view, right? It's a lot of compliance, and we're here to pick up the pieces when there's a loss or go out and find things that are wrong. Those are all negative frames. So it's not surprising that people might tend to avoid the safety department sometimes. Frame it in more positive terms, right? We know these things. Frame it with the terms of learning. We want to learn and understand how work actually gets done. We want to do these things because we want to make the entire organization more resilient. Who doesn't want that? I haven't met anybody that doesn't want that. So, other terms, right? Help us learn how this job is really done. Help us, help me, help us learn. These are all non-threatening, very positive things. The other one, personally, over the years, are five principles, right? These are principles. These are basically true, right? One of the ways that I frame these, I tell people, the principle, these are pro tips for operational learning. Because if you think about it, if we are going about learning and operating in this way where we believe that error is normal, um, blame fixes nothing, we're really interested in understanding the context. We know that learning is vital, and that is something that we don't want to drop. And our response matters if we if we are operating with that demeanor. We are going to be learning a lot more truth, a lot less sugarcoat. Um, and therefore, those are pro tips. Do you want pro tips? I want pro tips. Everybody wants
Is
pro tips. Yeah.
Yeah, John, you mentioned another thing which I think is a pro tip back on slide 8. And our friend Mike Petrowski asked if you could expand a little bit on it. And that was your pause and review at 2 and 10 and 2.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, pause and review at 10 and 2. Uh, Generally, in like manufacturing, and what we've seen at work is we were having a lot of incidents at 10:30 and 2:30, and this has been a trend. And one thing that I guess we nudged, or we sprinkled in, is we gave the employees agency to pause at 10 and 2 to just like reassess the job site, and look and try to understand and identify if any critical situations had developed since they started work. And this is just a way for them to reflect. So we're sort of like guiding them, to be more mindful and find more things on the job site. Yeah, good question.
Thanks, John. And again, if you all have any questions for John, please drop them in the chat. We'll make sure they get answered.
Thank you. The next one here, this is going to hit you right in the face. It should, but salience. Okay, salience is all about making it stand out. If there's a message or something that you want to get across, understand that when you make it stand out, people are more likely to pay attention to that. We all know this, right? This is nothing new here, but how can we use this for human and organizational performance stuff? So we notice things that are novel, personal, and emotionally resonant, right? So to get those last two, stories and the words that we use, can be very helpful to have salience in the things that we're trying to get across, the things that we want to have stick in people's minds. So stories, especially the ones that portray vulnerability, okay, when leaders sort of admit their fallibility, their mistakes, their experiences, right? Those are particularly more potent. Anytime that we can attach real voices, quotes from the front line, right? Usually, historically, you didn't see a whole lot of that in communications and things that were being shared. So that things like that are salient, especially when you see a corporate communication come out that is using the words of the workforce. That tends to stand out. Um, Another phrase, right? How will the next event happen here? That stands out. Not a lot of people have been asked that who are workers. Where is the next event going to happen? What is it going to be? And then the one, the poster boy for salience, right, that we all know about is what is sticky? The stuff that kills you, that slaps you in the face, right? You're not going to forget about that, and it's very powerful, and it's genius, right? Um, another one, making things that have become stagnant more salient. You know, the question that we ask every morning before work starts, did you have any near misses or close calls, right? We're using that same terminology, that same phrasing, and it loses its salience, right? People tend to maybe just tone that out and it's part of the everyday thing. Um, how do you zhuzh it up a little bit, you know? Like how do you get the same response by asking it a little bit different, right? Did anything crazy happen yesterday is one example, right? And I'm sure that you can think of many other great examples to get people's attention and get people talking about the near misses, near hits that they had the previous day. Two of the more interesting ones that I found here are priming and social proof, prime decision making, which is, the work of Gary Klein. People that are familiar with that, anybody that has done work with the Forest Service or firefighters or police officers or military may have crossed the work of Gary Klein. But prime decision making, how can we influence people's decisions in the future? How can we prime this? Stories, again, are a wonderful way to prime people's decision making. Often, when you're accumulating close calls and events and the description of those events, if there is something particular, you definitely want the workforce to know. And if there's a certain behavior you want to nudge along, you can use similar events and share similar lessons learned to sort of prime their choices when they get into a similar or identical event or situation in the future. So sharing what worked with the last group, what the last group did when they were in a particular situation, when the next group enters that in the future, they are more likely to do what they hear worked for that group. Next, social proof. People are influenced by what others are doing. Don't know if you knew that, but we're people are conformists. Sad to say, but we are. And this is kind of demonstrated with the Ash conformity experiments that were done. I guess to give you like a high level overview of how that was carried out, they had a number of people in a room that sort of were all in on it together, and they had one person that was sort of out, and the people that were in on it answered this question with the wrong answer. And now the person that wasn't involved knew that the answer was wrong, but they answered it wrong to go along with the group. So they conformed with the group. And they've seen this happen again and again and again in a lot of different spaces. And I think about like violations and drift when it comes to this too. Why are employees violating a policy that they know um, is a violation? Like how is this happening? Sometimes you can find this conformity happening here. People know it's wrong, but it's what everybody else is doing. It's just what we do around here, and that's how things can drift often. But so how do we use this to our advantage? We can demonstrate how other people are doing the hop things that we would like to see done. If other people are doing learning teams, if other people are asking operationally curious questions. If other people are taking this new approach, then there's a better chance that more folks will come along with. Super interesting. Uh, Changing gears a little bit here to the field guide to human centered design, again, distributed by IDEO, this company. And what I want to pass along to you here is how we can use this idea that people are not the problem, they are the solution. We can use this to solve problems of leaders, the problems that are urgent. Um, if you help somebody solve an urgent problem, you automatically become way more valuable. That's just how it works. So if we can demonstrate a human performance, a hop idea, and demonstrate it being valuable at solving something urgent, oh man, we are in. We are invited to the party at that point. The beautiful thing about this guide is it is a how-to to do this, how to get the solutions from people that actually work and how to apply it to really big challenging problems. So within this guide, they have a lot of case studies of around the world where they've applied it mostly to like big economic or environmental challenges, but where they've used the expertise of the people that work or live in proximity to that problem to come up with long lasting, sustainable, very smart, agreeable solutions. So I was very inspired by this, and I've been doing this here. I keep my ears open when I'm in meetings with leadership. What is urgent? What are the problems? And I try to jump on that as quickly as possible to sort of like design a little solution using human centered design because when we're doing that, we've operationalized HOP at that point, and I didn't even have to say that to anybody, right? And at the end of the day, that's kind of what we want to do anyway, right? We want to get this stuff working so we can see the benefits and all the good things that we believe in. A couple of good tips from the guide is start with people, not ideas, right? We all come to it with like solutions in our head. It's just like how we are. We want to fix the problem, so we're automatically coming up with solutions in our head right away. But there are solutions, right? We don't live around the problem, so we don't have the perspective. We don't understand the blue line, right? We're making a black line. So start with the people. Field interviews, shadowing, journey mapping, which is really interesting, which is sort of like shadowing a person, how they go about their day, where where the friction is, where all these like important points are throughout the process that we can help influence. Just a lot of good stuff in there for that. So sprinkling new knowledge into old knowledge. The rest of the slides here, I just want to talk about sprinkling new knowledge into things that probably exist in your company right now. This is, for me, this has been the easiest way to operationalize the stuff that we talk about here, because I don't need a whole lot of permission. I don't need to rewrite a whole lot of things. I'm just doing what we've always done, just slightly differently, right? And when the results are better, that's when I get buy-in and get invited back to do more and more. So it doesn't really matter what we call it. Do we just want the good stuff? I want the good stuff, right? And here is a list of a couple of places where we can sprinkle the good stuff into investigations, pre-job briefs, the good old job observation, close calls, root cause analysis, yep, and even corrective actions. The first one I would share is investigations, right? I feel like when we're operationalizing HOP, this is sort of the first place where we kind of go and start doing stuff. Uh, I think, man, the easiest thing, and I don't know if it's like this where you've been, but investigations, especially like the solutioning part, it usually ends up being a room full of managers and maybe some safety people in there, and we're coming up with the solutions. And we know that that is we're missing a big part, right? We're missing a big part. Learning teams obviously are so much better, but it's resource intensive, and it might take a little while to get a process down and start going in that direction. One thing you can do to like just get moving here is invite some sharpened perspective into that meeting. Invite one person from the sharp end, because now you have that perspective, and and that will be a game changer, right? You've seen it before in learning teams when the people doing the work contribute, and it's like, whoa, you know, why didn't we ever ask you before? And this piece always reminds me of the movie Big. Remember with Tom Hanks? There's a scene in the movie. A lot of you are gonna remember this one, where he is at the toy company. They're in the executive boardroom. You have all the executives looking at charts and looking at data, and they have decided that the building that transforms into a robot is going to be the next biggest toy. And of course, Tom Hanks being the sharp end, right? The user of the toy, his famous words here is, I don't get it. I don't get it. Right. And what is there not to get? Like the numbers show and whatever, but that always stuck with me. And this is how I feel um, investigations go. This is how they go if we don't have that sharpened perspective in there, which is so valuable and easy to get, right? Another one with investigations that I want to share with you is, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a lot of managers that have not had any training or help in how to go about an investigation, just like a real simple one. Um, Therefore, they're kind of like a blank slate, right? And I found like any type of guidance or any type of help that we can give them in this space, they are incredibly thankful for, because they haven't had any. It's just been one of their duties that they've been asked to do. They don't do it all that often because people aren't getting hurt every single day, or things aren't getting broke. And when they need to do it, they sort of have to change gears, and it's a little bit disorienting. But one thing we can do to help them with is to sprinkle in, introduce them to some of these operational learning questions. And the one that I'm sharing with you here comes from Hop Lab, the people over at South Pack International have put this one together. This one's all over the place. It's really, really well written, inviting, visually appealing, and I feel like it's a really nice stepping stone into asking better questions during an investigation. All you got to do is distribute this to a manager, when they need to do an investigation. Here's some better questions. That's all you need to do. They're going to ask them, and they will be surprised. The other piece, too, here is something very easy to suggest is just, hey, how about we separate learning from fixing? What does that look like? Hey, we're going to have two meetings here. The first one, we're just going to learn. We're going to learn. We're going to forego any conclusions here, because we're gonna learn a lot of good stuff, and we're gonna want to jump on things that sound good to us, that we feel like we can fix right away, but let's just like put some space there, right? And that aligns really well with what we've learned from traditional learning teams, and that approach there. Just put a little bit of space in there, separate those two, and I think you're making a you're making a big move with that one, and it's pretty simple. The old pre-job brief, pre-task planning, tailgate talks. This is fertile ground to sprinkle things in. Remember, we don't want to bolt things on, but if we can sort of weave it in to what is already existing, uh, there's an opportunity for good things to happen here. So one of the places where you can get people thinking a little bit differently is in the pre-job brief, and sprinkle in some questions that encourage them to anticipate what could go wrong. Start building foresight into these different pathways to failure. Because if we understand how things could unfold, then we're better equipped to put better controls in place during this pre-job briefing. So some of those questions could look like, what's the worst thing that could happen on this job? What is the worst thing, right? And how would we know that it's starting to go wrong? There's a lot of critical thinking that you're sort of encouraging here too with these questions. What will make this task hard to do safely? We want to know. And when everybody's in a group talking about this, it's a wonderful thing, right? How might we better support decision making in high pressure conditions? Um, is it easy to make good decisions when you're under a lot of pressure? Usually that ability erodes a little bit, and thinking about it, gaining some foresight here can be extremely beneficial to having things go right, right? Job observations, we love them. Okay, God bless them. They're not going away. We don't want them to go away. We can sprinkle some good stuff into here. Um, who's seen the operational learning questions like on the cards? I've seen that these are becoming more and more popular. I was inspired by these, like at our house with my family. We actually have these cards in the picture here. They're called talking points, but they're really cool cards. They serve as like a it's almost like a facilitator in a box, if you will. The cards on here are things that you might not normally ask, but they really open up conversations that you might not normally have with workers. And it's a really good way to suss out latent conditions, things that are causing people problems. And if you were to sort of weave this in on your job observation, you can still get done what the company wants you to do with the job observations. You can still get the compliance piece figured out, but at the same time, asking these questions make the whole process seem very, very different and very good, because a lot of the time people have never been asked these questions before, and it's refreshing. So it can be a good simple things. Also related to these cards, you can give them to leaders, and now you have them being operationally curious, and it goes on and on and on from there. How does your company view close calls and good catches? Do they see that number? Like if there's a lot of good close calls, are there people, leaders in the organization that might look at that as a negative? Because if they do, that's another place where you can gently nudge this message that, this is this is actually a measure of a very healthy uh, safety program. working here, if we're getting a lot of close call reports and we're closing the loop on them, and we have a reporting culture happening here, and we're learning about stuff before it causes major problems, this is such a wonderful thing. And just, flipping the script on that is very transformational on its own. Root cause analysis, I know where I'm at, we do these all of the time on all sorts of stuff. We have a lot of automation here, and we work in that type of environment, and we're doing RCA all of the time, right? It can be limiting. So I think what I've done that I've seen a lot of promise is, instead of offering up one root cause, I never do that, but I always offer up causal factors. At the end when I'm delivering the information, it's always, here are the causal factors. That is what I present to the group. And I've never had anybody say, yeah, but give me just one root cause, because each one of them alone is interesting and important. And I feel like if you don't do that, then you are forced to give one root cause. You are forced to sort of like pick one that you're going to deliver to leadership. So bring them the causal factors, and see how they what they want to do with them. Usually more things get fixed, more things get paid attention to when I've done this, and that's very simple. The next one is corrective actions. Okay, corrective actions. Uh, a very transformational thing you can do here is challenge people. Um, Say, hey, we're not going to have fix the worker corrective actions. Like, let's challenge, let's commit ourselves to not stop at fix the worker stuff. And when you do that, especially if you have them publicly commit to that, then there's going to be more effort put into getting below the surface, understanding context, and looking at more system-based fixes, which is something that we're all about, and we feel that is very, very important. But just that simple nudge there, hey, don't stop at fix the worker, can make a big difference. And then people are operationalizing HOP. You have more people doing it, right? Um, And if you need any backup, don't forget about our old friend Ed Deming. I haven't heard anybody argue with Ed Deming, right? He's got a track record. He's got proof that his principles are very transformational. But one of the things that he had was the 94% rule, and he had found that approximately 94% of problems stem from the organization and their systems, and only 6% of problems are due to individual uh, behaviors, individual employees. So, using this as backup, like if they're like, well, what? It's the employee, be like, well, actually, if we stop at the employee, there's a 94% chance that we are leaving broken things unfixed in the organization. So, um, there's a little bit of uh, uh, there's an incentive to go deeper, right? Getting down to the last one I want to share with you too, and still related to corrective actions, is this idea of a kappa strength metric. Um, Kappa strength metric encourages people to learn more about system influences and find quality solutions. So it's not so much about time to closure on corrective actions, but this metric really gets people wanting to work towards these better controls, right? The ones that reduce, and eliminate. The score is on the side, right? You get a 1 for administrative control, which is weak, right? And you see the score increase as you go to the more permanent ones like elimination. So when you're scoring groups and business units on a kappa strength metric, you're sort of nudging them towards going deeper, getting underneath the surface, moving past the the worker error to find real solid fixes. And lastly, the concepts and principles of human and organizational performance, what that I found, we share those with a lot of people. Actually, in Deming's work, we share a number of principles. Deming's 14 points. I know that there's a couple of them in there that are almost identical to our principles, and they're good, right? They're basic truths. Why would you ignore them? Use them. And I would encourage you to find the other business units, the other like-minded departments that may be in your organization that are probably using the same or similar concepts to get their work done, and use this as a community of practice. Rally around the same things that we want to get done, and use these groups as a force multiplier within your company. A couple of them that I've come across that, talking to these groups, it's like talking to long lost friends, that feeling. But the OCM team, the Organizational Change Management Group, sort of talk about a lot about the same things. The quality team, of course, operational excellence, the OpEx people, even IT. IT has a lot of the same concepts that they use uh, to keep things running well, right? They're always thinking about the fallibility of people and human error and things like that. So very interesting groups. And anyone else, I might have missed somebody. I'd love to know if you can think of any other groups that you've come across that talk about the same thing. Final thoughts from me are you don't need permission to be curious, to ask questions, right? It's usually very refreshing to people to be asked. Do want to let you know that generally stopping things that the business expects you to do typically doesn't go well, right? If they're expecting you to do these certain things and you just stop them, you're going to lose power. You're going to lose some support. Be creative and try to understand where you can sprinkle the good stuff into the things that you have to do. Reshaping, adding good things that produce better results is like going above and beyond, right? It's going to make you look good. And practicing these things without connecting them to a program really makes you stand out. When you're done doing an investigation, when you're done doing a job observation and you've sprinkled some of these things in there and you walk away, people are going to be like, wow, that that was good. Like, who is that genius, right? And you can take the credit for that, and that'll even give you more and more influence um, within your department. These are all like simple revolutionary acts. If you think about it, very small changes that have a huge, huge impact. And that concludes my spiel to you all. Thank you so much. Again, I'm John Schmidt. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I wanna hear from you. I want to be friends. So this QR code brings you to my page. But again, thank you so much, and I'll stick around for any questions, comments.
Well, thank you, John, so much for your presentation today. I will definitely make sure that anybody who has any questions that we don't have a chance to get to, that we will capture them and get them to you. We do have a few community announcements that we want to get out. After today's webinar, on YouTube is a new shorts micro lesson with our friends Ron, Dave, and Ben. The series is titled Speak Up, Dig Deep, Learn More. This series features 19 short videos. Each delivers a quick insight into leadership, safety, and organizational learning. Subscribe on YouTube, and Jessica is going to share the link for that. Our second announcement is about next month's webinar. It is titled Beyond Hazards, Integrating HOP and Human Factors into Risk Assessment. That's going to be on Wednesday, August 27th. So, ready to transform your risk assessments into tools that truly affect how work happens? This engaging webinar will show you how to weave human factors and HOP into your processes so you can spot error traps, improve both JSAs and dynamic assessments, and align safety systems with real-world behavior. So again, Jessica is going to drop that chat in the link. The third one is our conference for next year is set for Denver, Colorado. We hope to see a lot of you all there. We are aiming to get information for that available a little bit earlier this year. So make sure that you are on our mailing list, and the link is also going to be provided on the website. We are also going to continue to formalize some of our volunteer functions. So if you're interested in volunteering at the conference next year, please reach out to me at my email, hello@colearning.org. And finally, if you have any articles or white papers that you think the community would benefit from, please share those with Jessica. And Jessica dropped her email in the chat as well. So there was a lot of great things in the chat, John. I don't know if you had a chance to read through all of them, but a lot of people benefited greatly from the time that we shared here with you today. Again, Jessica will capture any questions that were dropped in the chat that we didn't get to ask John. We thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward again to seeing you at our webinar next month in August, as well as our conference next year in Denver, Colorado. Have a great day, everybody.